Let's talk some commerce now. The United States government has signed an MOU with the Ghanaian government, obviously through the finance ministry, to provide a framework for both countries on specific areas of collaboration. Now, that collaboration is expected to be in the form of public-private partnerships with priority projects in energy, agriculture and infrastructure sectors, as well as industrial production aimed at supporting Ghana's transformation and industrialization agenda. Joining me in the studio for a quick chat on this is Deputy Minister for Information, Kojo Opon Nkrumah. Kojo, it's good to have you in the studio. It's been a while.
Yeah, we're around.
Right, let's talk about this MOU. Usually when you hear MOU, you either think of cliche or you think of a lot of words that deserve attention sometimes, but can easily skip you. Break it down for us. What is this and how do Ghanaians even appreciate it? What do we get from it?
The MOU usually is the first step or the door opener, which spells out the areas of interest and possible cooperation, or the areas of intent. So you recall that about 60 years ago, Ghana's first president, Dr. Nkrumah, signed an agreement with Edgar Kaiser for the setup of Valco and the Akonsombo Dam. It was the first big deal that we did with the Americans. 60 years down the line, President Akufo-Addo today led the exercise for the signing of another major deal between the U.S. government and the government of Ghana.
Okay.
And in this broad memorandum of understanding, about 12 areas have been outlined now for follow-up work between parties on both sides, public sector agencies and private sector agencies on both sides, from industrialization, and it specifically mentions our One District, One Factory agenda, port infrastructure, rail, medical services. We've spoken a lot about medical services in Ghana and the need to improve healthcare in Ghana. Just today in Parliament, we're just laying papers to finalize the University of Ghana Medical Center, but this also now takes it to a whole different level, regional financial services hubs and many other areas. So this is now the broad MOU. The next step is that private sector organizations and government agencies on both sides are now going to pick specific projects, scope, costs, and begin to implement. And we're hoping that this opens the doors to yet another major chapter in the Ghana-US
It sounds very broad to me, and I'm lost in the broadness of the area of focus, really. If you say government entities and public entities are going to begin to pick which area of collaboration to decide on, can you give us specific examples?
So, for example, if you take rail infrastructure, the government of Ghana, and let me just use Accra, for example, has what we call the Accra Light Rail Project, which is aimed at introducing light rail or the tram system on major routes, about 5 or 6 major routes in Accra.
Okay.
Now, for each one of these routes, you're probably talking about, $2 billion plus. No single bank here in Ghana is going to be able to finance that. You're not going to find engineers in Ghana who have the technology to do that.
Okay.
So you would find organizations on the American side that are able to do this, bring in the financing, bring in the technology and the know-how to do it. You find a number of Ghanaian companies that can perhaps play some participatory role or support in it. Then you find the government of Ghana trying to provide the general surrounding services, right of way and other things that need to be done to make it easier for these two private sector agencies to go into this transaction, or maybe even to underwrite the financing that is coming in. So when you break it down specifically, I know, for example, that rail infrastructure is one of them, and in that area we have the Railway Master Plan, which has been costed. Now what will happen is that you find the Railway Ministry and a partner agency from the US, the Railway Development Authority and a partner agency in the US begin to work together to pick a particular line and now cost and develop. That's the next step.
Yeah, it's still very broad, and I'm sure you agree with me. Can we look specifically at health, since it's become a major issue of discussion recently because of what we've experienced? 70-year-old man goes to the hospital, 7 different hospitals, and dies. There are other discussions as well bordering on health. What specifically are we going to see in the health sector?
The Americans are very advanced in healthcare, in telemedicine, in specialized healthcare as well. We are still running a system where you have CHIPS compounds and clinics and polyclinics, and then you have the tertiary hospitals. Emergency healthcare, as has been mentioned over and over again, is literally broken down. But a good chunk of it is because at the tail end, in terms of ability to pay through the system, you have a challenge because of the collapsed NHIS system. And so people who have to make investments...
Oh, is it collapsed?
Well, now that
I
it's
thought
been
that the
brought back
NPP
online.
said you've revived it.
Yes, that's my point.
Have
Now
you
that
revived it?
It is being brought back to life. If I may put it that way.
Okay.
Now, when you clean it up through the value chain, private sector investors will now have the confidence to put their money into building a particular medical facility because they know that they'll get their money at the tail end because it'll be paid for. Today, as I'm speaking to you, we've just laid a €6 million loan facility in Parliament to try and finish the University of Ghana Medical Center, even as we work towards its opening. Now, if you had a framework...
6 million, you said?
Yes, €6 million. If you had a framework that allowed private sector to know that we can build this thing and it will be paid for at the end, your government will not necessarily need to go and borrow that. Now, let me take you back to the earlier conversation. You have all of these partners on the American side who have done this and have excelled in it.
Okay.
How do you create a framework that allows them to come with their technology and their money and front load it? And what do you do to assure them that when you do it, people will get paid up in the end? That's the kind of collaboration that you are hoping to see.
About here. Interesting. What then are these international partners saying about the positioning of our currency at the moment?
It is one of the issues.
Theirs?
Yes, it is one of the issues that was raised by our American friends when they came in. That when somebody wants to make an investment, one of the questions that they want to ask is how stable your currency is. We have had opportunity to share with them data on the currency situation. Yes, the currency has not appreciated. It has not remained unchanged, but relatively,
it has depreciated.
Yes, relatively, the rate of depreciation so far for the year has been better as compared to previous years. We still have a lot more
What does
to
that
do.
even mean?
Well, what it means is that if you look at previous years and compare to now, the CD was depreciating faster or bigger than it is doing now, and it is because of a number of things that we have done so far. Remember, last year we were able to get a balance of payment surplus. We were sending out more than we were importing. Therefore, the demand for the currency was not as previous years. This year, peculiar situation that has hit is that because treasury rates in America are going up following President Trump's interventions there, traditional global investors who would have brought their money or who even had their money in the Ghanaian system now compare and say, well, the traditional place is now getting better. I may want to move a bit of money there. So you would find that demand for currency and its repatriation abroad, particularly the dollar, is gone up a bit higher than anticipated. But the various steps that are being put in place, which includes continuing to improve our non-traditional exports, continuing to improve even on the exports of our traditional commodities, as well as substituting what we traditionally import. And if you look at the numbers that have come from the Agric Ministry, let me give you something as simple as maize, where you previously had tons of maize being imported. In the year gone by, or I think early this year, when warrants were given for importation of maize, at the end of the day, the importers decided not to import because the maize on the local market is cheaper than what is out there on the external market. Now, in that particular instance, for example, you notice that demand for imported maize is literally gone zero. If you are successful in rolling out this across the value chain, as is being thought of and is being worked on, then you now tone down importation and therefore consequent demand for the dollar on the global market. We have been explaining...
I feel like I'm in a deja vu. I feel like this is something I've heard before.
Yes.
And I feel like what we're experiencing at the moment is something we've experienced before. And I'm wondering, one of the things that the people we believe voted for your party is that you promised that we're not going to see some of these these problems over and over again. Why are you not able, or what's the government or the economic management team, where they're not able to foresee what we're experiencing now?
You are foreseeing it and you are putting in place measures, and that is why the rate of depreciation is lower than what has transpired in previous years. Now, I'm suggesting to you that it's not 100% done. That is why there's more work that you need to do. But yes, you have foreseen it, yes, you have predicted it, yes, you have put in place measures which are ensuring that the rate of depreciation today is lower than what you've seen in previous years.
Okay, you talk about the rate.
What you need to do is to do a bit more in the months ahead of us so that you can still continue to have a control or a handle over it.
I'd love to know what you've done in the coming months and why you think those are the most efficient ways of dealing with the problem we have at hand at the moment. But then you talk about the rates. Now we're looking at 4 cedi 85 pesos.
Yes.
We've never
That's
been here before, have we? Yes.
No, I mean, but at any point in time.
Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. I get where you're going. I get where you're going. Now, I'm not a very deeply economic person. Now, you are. So you perhaps beat me to it. But let's look at the very common Ghanaian like me, like a guy we spoke to who is going to pay his school fees in dollars. All he's thinking about is the exchange rate. Now, for us Ghanaians who don't understand economics too much, that's what matters to us. Why are we at 4 cedi 80 pesos? This is like unprecedented, isn't it?
So let me explain something briefly.
Please.
If at the beginning the cedi to the dollar was 1 cedi to $1, it depreciated to 4 cedis to $1. That's a huge rate of depreciation. I haven't done the full math right here, right now, but that's a huge rate of depreciation. If it further depreciates from 4 cedis to 4 cedis 80 pesos, of course, 4 cedis 80 pesos is unprecedented. But the rate of depreciation between 4 and 4.8 is way, way, way lower than the rate of depreciation between 1 and 4.
Who does this kind of explanation benefit?
It is for our mutual edification. And then it is also to get us to understand, therefore, what is being done to ensure that it didn't go from 4 to 8, but has gone from 4 to, let's say, 4.8. But that is not to suggest that this ought to be the perfect scenario. That is why I'm explaining to you that, therefore, these are the steps that we are taking to ensure that we're able to hold on and possibly even get to a point in time where the currency appreciates.
And on that score, I'm sure that those who do business trading and those who appreciate economics better than I do will appreciate what you're saying. What then do you tell those who are paying school fees in dollars, whose heads are spinning? What do you tell those who are at Abosokai who are saying that, well, we used to buy this for that price and now we're having to buy it, and those of us who are going to buy spare parts are screaming in pain? What do you tell all of us?
First of all, we all buy things in this country, some of which are imported. And so what happens affects all of us. And it is our desire to ensure that the situation is arrested and doesn't degenerate. But it is important to recognize that something has been done that has slowed down the rate of depreciation so far. Because if those interventions had not been put in place, as I just demonstrated to you, how we had moved from 1 to 4, we'll probably be talking about the cedi being about 8 by now. But we are talking about 4.8, which means something has been done to slow it down. It is those remaining items that we need to focus attention on and ensure that we succeed at, so that we don't slip any further.
So what's the plan going forward? You say that some interventions have been put in place for, the coming months, so we don't go any further?
We are not at that level where we're going to necessarily have to require injection of dollars into the system.
We're not?
No. We're
Even
not
though this is an unprecedented situation?
Well, like I've told you, tomorrow if it goes to 4.9, it will be unprecedented because we've never hit 4.9 before. But if it's from 4.8 to 4.9, the rate is way lower than from 1 to 4, as we mentioned earlier. So unprecedented, in my view, respectfully, is not, really the argument. What the argument is the efforts that are being put in place to shore up our balance of trade and therefore balance of payment, so that we have a stronger currency in the medium to long term. And those are the efforts that are being put in place. They are the efforts that we're going to continue with.
Could you break that down? What exactly are you doing in the next months to make sure that we're covered?
Like I've suggested to you, we are not at that level where immediately right here and now.
So nothing has been done, basically.
No, well, that's a very unfortunate interpretation.
Now you're here to help me understand.
So let me
and this is my understanding. Okay, this is my understanding. So help me. Okay.
Let me answer you. I'm saying that we are not at that level.
Okay.
I'm sure you recall a time ago where we had to issue forex instructions, etc. We are not there. We are pretty confident that with the kind of inflows that have come in, that are coming in, and the import bills that are coming in, the situation will normalize in the shortest possible time.
Okay. All right. The minority, by the way, you're very good friends. They're saying that we're looking at getting to 5 cedi 1 peso by end of this year. Do you agree with that?
There are so many things the minority has predicted from the 2017 budget, if you recall.
Why should we ignore their predictions?
Because a lot of their predictions just fly out of the window. I'm sure you recall they said we're going to have mobile money tax. They said we're going to have all sort of taxes. They said that the deficit was going to be thrown out of gear last year in the year 2017. When it comes to questions of the economy, I don't think that the predictions of the minority are things that we want to hold on to. I am confident in the program of the government of Ghana, and I believe we should rally behind that program and work with it.
They're saying that we're experiencing this because of excessive borrowing. I think you complained...
excessive borrowing, rather, would have brought in more foreign currency.
Well, I heard from one of the minority spokespersons, Klucha Veji, saying that it's because of the way you've borrowed. No, maybe I'm not putting it right. It says the way you've borrowed.
Excessive borrowing would have brought in more hard currency.
But then we'll have to service those loans.
Yes, but of course you have liability management operations, so you know how to service it in a way that doesn't hit your currency. So
well, that's what they're saying.
If it's excessive borrowing, and if you look at borrowing, for example, the amounts of borrowing that transpired in the last 8 years, no way compared to what we have had. Remember, last year, for example, we were able to bring down the deficit. You know why we were able to do it? Because we were able to reduce the rate of debt accumulation. That's lower borrowing than they were doing in the previous years. So that is really not the argument. As I've mentioned to you, the minority has a habit of doing all its sort of speculation and throwing things up in there. But they are not things that I enjoy following, because it doesn't come to pass. What matters is the administration's program, how it's implemented, and the numbers that it churns out at the end of the day. And for example, as we're telling you today, we have done an MOU that is going to translate into some specifics. Indeed, just as a quick follow-up, within, I think, the next 24 hours, you're going to have an $850,000 grant being signed for off-grid power systems here in this country, which will help us further reduce the price of energy in some specific areas here in the country. So I have confidence in the government or the administration's program as it's been implemented, as against what the minority chooses to speculate.
We'll leave our conversation there, but you're saying that in the next 24 hours we should receive that grant, right?
No, we're going to sign off on that grant. That's a follow-up. Those are some of the specifics to this big MOU that
do you have any of these specifics in bullets that you can give us? Like, and I'm looking at how much we're going to be making, grants, which are good, as against
loans. I've just
given
you one about 850,000.
Yes, I got that. Any more? Are there any more?
In the next 24 hours. Some of them are still being negotiated. The delegation is still here. It's a 60-man delegation. Made up of people from private sector.
Are they taking over our country?
Oh, of course not. And I'm still looking forward to the so-called base. Have you seen it anywhere? You should do some follow-up stories on it.
Oh, of course we have followed.
Because I recall a lot of work that was, done to suggest there was a base coming. And I think it's also good to
you could say that's an issue of semantics. Certainly we'll follow up on that.
Let's see if there's a
so
base
this
coming.
has been signed, and going forward, we're looking at, is this supposed to help the NPP, redeem its promises on, let's say, one district, one factory? Where are we, by the way?
I think in the coming weeks, the Trade Ministry will be doing an update. I've seen an internal briefing.
Based on this MOU?
No.
Okay.
I mean, on that specific program. But of course, like I mentioned, the one district, one factory is the first item, as you see, on the list of various initiatives, because as we have said over and over again, it is not state money. It is mostly private sector money. The state provides guidance and shepherd's into that area. The Americans are excited and interested in it, and they want to come on board to complement what is being done in that area.
I hope that we're getting the fundamentals right, Kojo, because I can point to you some PPPs that have really gone sour. Like we've had the BRT, well, not BRT, the Ayalulu bus drivers go on some sort of a strike today.
Yeah. You recall that in 2016, just before the elections, the government of the day changed from, or the administration of the day changed from the BRT to policy and program, and now they decided to go towards the Ayalulu system.
Right.
I recall, and I was on UTV at the time, because I had followed the BRT program throughout, lots of questions raised and criticism that structure itself was a bit difficult. Yeah. Today, as we mentioned, you are having challenges, and we now have to find ways of turning it.
Why didn't you find the ways when you took over? I mean, you're in the second year. I mean, they should have started from the beginning. I mean, this is a government that's in a hurry.
I keep telling colleagues and friends
but this is a government that's in a hurry.
Yeah, but problems that have been occasioned over 8 years are not solved in even 1 year. You got to take your time, build a strong foundation, get the solutions right. If not, you will rush into throwing out solutions, just like how was done to some of these programs that won't work. The BRT project started, I think, somewhere around 2008, 2009. About 8 years, and look at where it ended up. Of course, you don't expect that within 1 year everything will be turned around. But I am clear in my mind that the Minister of Transport and his agencies that are working on it are aware of the challenge and seek to turn it around.
I really hope so.
I hope so
because thousands of people were stranded this morning. And if you don't have a vehicle of your own and you have to rely on those buses, then you tend to sometimes turn around and curse the government. You don't want your government to be cursed.
No. Nobody wants the administration to be cursed.
Kojo, thank you so much for coming. I really wish that we had
me.
a lot of time because it looks like I have a lot of questions.
You should invite me again.
I think so. I think so. Certainly you won't be too busy and you show up.
I'm available.
But actually, one of the good things about Kojo, by the way, is that he's always available, right?
Look for me, I'll
so
be here.
Every time when we call you, we'll get
Look
you to answer the hard
here.
questions for us. Kojo Oppong-Nkrumah is Deputy Information Minister. They're helping us with those clarifications on what we're going to do. So, MOU signed between the government of Ghana and the government of the United States of America, and they're going to be focusing on several sectors of this country. Hopefully, things get better. We can only hope, can't we?